And just like that, we are live. I'm here with Kraig Kann from Kann Advisory Group, the host of the Track to Success podcast, former executive at the LPGA, former Golf Channel host, and a whole bunch of hats that you wore. It's very impressive, your career. So, I guess one question I would have, because I was listening to your podcast with Brandel Chambly, and how he didn't want, when he transitioned from playing to his broadcast career, that one of the reasons, outside of the family and the tragedy that he and his family went through, he wanted to be home more. But one of them was he did not want to be pigeonholed in one career his entire life. I thought that was very interesting. So as I was listening to that, one question I had for you is what was the decision process behind you? And these are only careers that I know you had. I didn't do a deep dive in your career. Then send a PI to look up the history of Kraig Kann. The transition from one to the next, basically four in let's say the last 30 years. Was there any particular reason, or just curiosity got the best of you? You want to test yourself, make yourself uncomfortable?
That's a great question, Pete. I would say this, I was the kid at 7 or 8 years old. All I ever wanted to do, my whole dream was to be on TV, to be a sportscaster and host on a network and maybe do play-by-play and all of that. That was my goal. That's what I did in my room, in my house when I was a kid. I made up my own games living in Chicago. Did Bulls games and Bears games, and closed the door and pretended I was the guy. And people would try to come in and I'd keep that door locked. Somebody might be able to be my color commentator, but they didn't get that microphone from me. That was a gift from my parents when I was young. And that was my goal. So all the way through high school and college, I set sail on that journey. And lo and behold, after 8 years in local TV doing sports, I ended up at Golf Channel and was certainly blessed. I had an opportunity and a dream come true, really, and to be able to work for Joe Gibbs and Mr. Palmer at day one of the Golf Channel was unbelievable. Mike Whalen was the one that hired me, and God bless him. He's going through cancer, and I hope everything turns for him, because I have a lot that I owe him in my career for that opportunity. But 17, 18 years, and there was a certain point I was sitting in the studio, truth be told, during a rain delay of the John Deere Classic. And I was asking myself, what am I going to do? I mean, am I only going to be, quote unquote, the Golf Channel guy? Is that what I'm meant to do? Is that the only thing? And so I had some time to kill, and I started a blog. And I started writing about this and that and different things that I felt like were my expertise. And I had a serious goal of taking that blog and turning it into a book someday, potentially. And I wrote 150 blog posts, and lo and behold, I had content for a book. And I wrote a book in 2019, came out in 2021. Can You Get Our Attention? But that's kind of where it kind of started. In 2009, there were some things that happened at Golf Channel with a merger and Comcast and NBC and all of that. And, I started thinking about my future. And in 2011, out of nowhere, Mike Wan contacted me about potentially being the chief communications officer at the LPGA. And, if I'm honest about that, if it would have been the PGA Tour that contacted me, I don't think I'd take that job, or I'm not that interested. The PGA Tour sails along. Granted, they've had a few years where it's been a little rocky lately, but it was something that wouldn't be of that much interest to me. But the LPGA was at a certain spot when Mike came on board that it needed help, and that was intriguing. And the opportunity to be the chief communications officer was not like communications manager or anything like that. It was straight into the C-suite to make a difference and have a voice, a unique voice, I felt like. And so that was a great opportunity for me to learn about the business of sports. And so I made a big jump. I mean, you talk about pivots. That was it. I gave up that dream for that opportunity. And 5 years into that, I started thinking about would have been 4 years, really. I started thinking about where's this going to go and what might be next here. And, I had started a company, a business, if you will, during my last 2 years at Golf Channel, that was a consulting business. I was working 4 days a week as an independent contractor, believe it or not, my last 2 years there. And so I consulted for 2 days a week. And basically one day a week. But it gave me the confidence that I could do something. I didn't get rich doing it, but in a year, I made enough money to say, you know what? I could potentially do this someday. So my mind started spinning about being able to, someday down the line, do something and take all of the skills or the we'll call it great skill sets that I might have, if that was going to be able to help me with something and be able to give back. And so later in that career at LPGA, I thought about starting that consulting company full time. And when I left there in 2016, I had a career coach, and she helped me through a lot of conversation. And I said, this is what I think I really want to do. And I'm grateful for that, because it gave me the opportunity to launch something, Kann Advisory Group, that I started officially, if you will, 2017. And I've been doing workshops and leadership communication consulting for corporations, and a lot tied to brands in golf, but a lot outside of golf. And it's been spectacular. I've been doing keynotes for the last 8 years on my own. I did a bunch when I was working in TV and working at the LPGA, but now I'm my own guy, right? So I've been doing that. The podcast, as you mentioned, did 5 years at Sirius XM on the PGA Tour radio side. So a lot of pivots. And the short answer to your question is, I didn't want to be pigeonholed. I didn't want to be stuck. I didn't want to only be known as the Golf Channel guy. I wanted to be able to say that I had enough talent and enough gifts to be able to pay it forward, to be able to help other people and not just be a TV guy. And I think that's maturity. I would actually give myself a little credit for that, because I think legacy is really important in life. What are you going to be known for? What difference will you ultimately make? Now, people might say I was a really good broadcaster, or maybe I was an average broadcaster, whatever they might think, that's fine. But I want to be able to make a difference for people and help them present the best of themselves. And that's what Kann Advisory Group is all about. And I'm loving it, to be perfectly honest. That's not to say that I don't miss TV sometimes or miss the media, because I do. I love talking to you.
It's funny that being called media, I never viewed myself as someone in the media. I mean, as far as preparing, everyone asks, how do you prepare for a podcast? I said, well, I really don't. It kind of goes along with who I'm going to ask to come on, or I just follow people online, social media. I get accused. My mom was here and she said, you're on social media all the time. I said, no, I'm not. I'm just looking to see who I should invite. And then I follow them so when they do come on, I had the idea to ask you to come on probably about a couple of months ago. And when I did reach out was because I finally felt comfortable. I read enough of your material to at least have an interesting conversation that wouldn't be twiddling my thumbs and dropping the ball. So it's odd to me to be called media. I just sit here and have conversations I think are interesting with people, ask them questions because they're very interesting, or I probably wouldn't have asked them on. But one thing that I listened on, I don't remember if it was your podcast or in one of your talks that you spoke of that resonated with me, that I have advised, I guess you would call it, younger kids who I coach, or even friends who were at a crossroads in life. Maybe they got let go or for whatever reason, but they had lost their confidence because they were, let's say they were fired or they were company buyout or something like that, but they didn't make that transition. And one friend I can think of in particular that I told him, because he was going to go back and get his master's, I think, in whatever it was, I don't remember, something, a second master's. And I said, well, why don't you figure out what you want to do and then find out who the best person is you can contact that is in that field or that you might have access to. I mean, if it's Jeff Bezos, try to get a hold of him, but basically tell them that you will come be their assistant for 2 years, which would be the equivalent of you getting your master's, and then use the money that you would pay for your master's to work for them for free, because you're going to learn a hell of a lot more at the feet of someone at that level, even if they're not a Bezos, even they're not a must. There's somebody who's phenomenal, a Gary Vaynerchuk, if you want to learn marketing, or someone who's exceptional. go listen to, or call up Kraig, and I don't mean to inundate your phone or your email and a bunch of people
I'll
emailing
take
you
it, man.
that are going to say, I'll work for you for 2 years. But I said, you're going to learn more in that situation. You're going to give up the financing for what I remember you saying was the experience. And it sounded like, you had your job at the Golf Channel. You pulled back a little bit on your schedule so that you could go test a theory, or you do another thing that you wanted to pursue. And then you got the experience, number one, to maybe propel you and learn some of the skills that you use now. But at least you followed some strings that needed to be pulled inside of you instead of just
Yeah,
pigeonholing yourself.
right. I'm going to change it up a little bit. I'm going to tell you this. I didn't make every one of those decisions on my own. Some of those decisions you might be forced into, or something changes in front of you in your career, in a job, and whatever, or you see some things going on around you, and you start thinking, okay, I need to be prepared for X, Y, or Z. And I think the most important thing we can do in life is react, and how we react and how we handle different things that are put in front of us. I talk a lot about not following the curve, but setting the curve. And I've never wanted to just do it like everybody else does it. If I'm honest with myself, I would say that in my earliest days at Golf Channel, I was probably impatient. I wanted to be a guy that had my own show. I didn't want to do all the shows, even though that was something. Now I look back and, and I was told at the time by some of the executives, look, you can handle this, and you can also do this, and you're good at this. And I was like, yeah, but I want to be known for one particular thing. I want to have that. And so I got a little impatient about the latter and thinking I needed to do something more. And I think as I've gotten older, I've learned that the most important thing is to be prepared for what might come your way and be ready before you need to make a 911 call. In other words, develop some skill sets along the way that will help you later in your career, because you might need them. I have a bunch of friends and other people that have been in the business that I've been in who've contacted me when they get furloughed, let go, or whatever might happen. And they're like, Kraig, how do you do what you do? How did you make that decision and all of that? And nobody really, in my opinion, prepares enough for the pivot, prepares enough to be ready to pivot. They just react, and they might freak out, and they might not be ready, and they panic. And that's not a good thing. So, if I can, if you will, pat myself on the back for anything, it's that I was constantly pretty self-aware and aware of my surroundings, and looked ahead and said, all right, I need to be ready for something else. But I also, in truth, had interests outside of just doing TV. I loved it. Do not get me wrong. I loved that job every day. I loved being on the air. I loved golf. I loved all the people I worked with. I have not a bad thing to say about any person that I was on air with. Everybody had amazing talent. And I will say, to the point that you made a little earlier, you know what? Getting something, working a couple of years or whatever that might be, and getting a master's degree. When I got to the LPGA, I didn't know the business world of corporate sports and all of that sort of stuff. I learned under Mike, under guys like John Padani, under women like Ricky Lasky. I could go on and name a bunch of different people that I learned a lot from. And that was a great gift to me, to be honest. I felt like I got my master's degree in something that I didn't have. I might have had a master's degree in communication or people simply by what I went to school for, or what I did, but I learned the other stuff. And so my message to people is, look, you might be really good at something, and you might think you're going to have a long career in something, but you just don't know. And so you need to be prepared and constantly sharpen your skills to be ready for what might happen down the line. And I've been somebody who's always tried to self-improve. I read a ton of books about that sort of stuff so that I'm prepared to be able to help myself and help others as well.
Did your pursuit of other avenues come from personal interest that you had in different things, or did it come from a mindset that you thought, I just in case, let me put this insurance policy in my own head in place in case I need it somewhere down the road? Was it one or of those? Was a little bit of one and a little bit of the other? How did that run through your own mind?
Combination. I'd say it was a combination. I mean, that's a good way to put it. Insurance policies are probably a good way to put that. I have 3 kids. You know, I had a family, and I'm looking out for them. I'm looking out for myself. And I remember some moments and seeing people be let go that were friends of mine, and seeing transition in the merger to NBC when I was at Golf Channel, and it didn't go well for some people. And I was, if I'm being candid, I was honestly nervous that, you know what, I don't know what my true future is going to be. You can say all you want, or they can tell you all they want. You're our main anchor. You're going to do Golf Central, you know, every night, the 4 main nights of the week, Thursday through Sunday, or you're going to host the pre and post game shows. Or, you know, I remember in 2003, I had the opportunity to do play-by-play full-time, 30 events at the Golf Channel. And I was like, wow, that's an amazing opportunity that came to me. Mm-hmm. And I said, what am I going to do the other 20 weeks? Because I'm going to be on the road. I have 3 young kids. They said, well, you'll anchor Golf Central. I said, what days would I do that? Thursday through Sunday, the main shows when you're in town. So now I'm thinking to myself, okay, that's like 48 weekends away from family. And that wasn't going to work for me nor them if I was going to be the dad or the husband at the time that I wanted to be. So make a different decision and pass something up. And then you become the pre and post game show host. There's constant pivots, and we make decisions only based upon what we have in front of us, the best decisions we can make. But I'm telling you, I did look ahead. I did see what happened to other people. I did think about, if I did this until I was 50 or 54, let's just use that number. If I did that till then, and all of a sudden they said, sorry, you know, flavor of the month, we're bringing somebody else in, or we don't need you anymore, and that's all I did, that's all I was known for, well, then what am I doing? And I have seen people that have really struggled with the next chapter. My job was to write the forward before I needed the next chapter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think as far as athletes who have done that, the first one I saw, or that probably is the most well known, is Chris Carter. And I remember them asking him, how did you prepare for this? And he, you know, I can't remember the exact story, but he saw older athletes or older football players that once they left football, they didn't have anything. They were miserable. They didn't have a purpose or a signal that would get them out of bed in the morning. And he said he didn't want to be like that. So he talked to his agent, and I could have this a little bit wrong, so I'm sure someone social media will correct me. But I'm pretty sure that he told his agent, you know, let's look for something that I can go into, a segue out of football, and then, but still, you know, be involved in the sport somehow. So sure. I think that people get in, especially in today's society, whatever field they're in. Obviously, this is a golf podcast, and so golf professionals or GMs or anybody that plays golf is obviously in business, but they get so myopic in their vision because in today's world it's so competitive that they think, I got to do this, I got to do this, I got to do this, or I might lose my job, and they don't. And then with family obligations, and there's only so much time in a day, that they really don't pursue or develop a skill that they might like, or they might be able to become an entrepreneur or build their own company like you'd have. And if anybody follows you, you have some very, very good people working at your company. So it's, I asked that, and now it makes total sense. It's like you don't set the plan like, I'm going to do this, and then it just all falls into place. It's like what happens in life maybe directs you in a certain way, and there's probably reasons for that that's beyond our scope of understanding.
Pete, I benefited so much by failure and things that didn't go the way I expected them to go. I think we gain a lot more by the mishaps in our life than all the mountains we climb. And I think it's really important to take stock of yourself. You know, I talk a lot about every job I've had. I look at it as a building block. And in that job or the place that I worked, and I challenge people with this in my workshops that I do for companies. Can you identify your greatest success while in that job? Can you identify your greatest failure and what you learned from it? Can you identify the most important influence that you made on others within that job, or someone who influenced you in that job? And what was your greatest takeaway? What was your greatest thing you left behind Those things are all important and they help write our story. And most people, as I share and find out, they don't know their story. They don't know their journey because they've never spent any time to dig deep and really figure it out. And that's one thing that I feel like I know pretty well is my story. It's always evolving. I still think my best days are ahead of me. I'm excited to go get up in the morning and start working on something. And I'm excited at the end of the day, whether it's gone perfectly or whether it hasn't, because that stuff is all really powerful. But I will say something about golf and my role in golf and my time in golf. If you know me well, you know that I used to play a ton of golf and I was pretty decent at it. I wasn't great at it, but I loved it. I had a great passion for it. And I tried to go on the air every day and try to connect with the audience and let them know that I was a friend in golf, not just a reporter or an anchor in golf. I loved my time at Golf Channel. It helped give me the path. I'm not sitting here talking to you today. Let's call it for what it is. If I don't spend 18 years at Golf Channel, right? If I don't spend 18 years at Golf Channel, Mike Wan potentially doesn't know who I am to give me the opportunity that I got at the LPGA. And I'll tell anybody that will listen that my 5 years at the LPGA are the most important 5 years I've had in my career because it showed me something that could give me the ability to do what I'm doing now. Not many people are just going to hire the Golf Channel host or TV host to come lead workshops for companies that I get to do. And I say get to, not have to. They wouldn't do that. But with 5 years working with big companies, big corporations, a lot of executives, and learning things that I learned about leadership, about communication, about marketing, about branding, and about taking athletes and others within the organization, helping elevate their brand. That's what's really helped me. Now, could I take all that stuff and then put it to work for things? You know how much time I spend on the actual choreography, if you will, of a workshop that a company goes through and the workbook that they'll go through, or the individual one-on-one executive coaching that I do, or executive workshop that I might do for one person, an executive, a senior executive, a rising star, to figure out how to present not just the best of their organization, but the best of themselves. That's what I did every day. I built a brand. I represented a brand. I wasn't an employee. I was an ambassador of a brand, Golf Channel, LPGA, and now Kann Advisory Group, and Kann Broadcast Talent Coaching, which is another business that I started at the beginning of 2024. So I love all those different things. I teach at a university one day a month at the Dan Patrick School of Sportscasting, helping aspiring broadcasters or sportscasters find their way. Because why? Because that's what I was, and I want to help give back. So all these different things, whether it's the book, whether it's the podcast, whatever it might be, I try to tie everything together for the benefit of an audience and give them value. That's what it's all about. That's what I've tried to do my whole career, and I'm having a blast doing it to this day, even though I'm not doing golf full time. And by the way, if you really know me, you know that my biggest passion is not golf; it's college football, and I am a diehard, and I love it. So golf's right there, though. I love it too. So it's been great.
Yeah, you got to get Chris Fowler to invite you out to do college game day sometime. That would be pretty cool. I could imagine you'd be like on cloud nine doing something like that.
That'd be pretty good. I don't think that call's coming anytime soon. I got a better chance of getting him on my podcast than I probably have of having him ask me to come be on game day.
Well, maybe you plant the seed now, and maybe sometime
there
he
you go.
says, hey, Kraig, we got to you want to come out and hang out, and Herb Street and him and the whole crew. And
but see,
like
here's
me
the
going
thing,
to Golf
right?
Channel back in the day.
Think about this. All right, Pete, you've been doing this podcast for a long time. All right. This is the first time I've joined you on it. You said you met me a long time ago, and we've talked a few times before we did this. The beauty of golf is relationships, and the fact that we're just sitting here talking, and you're interested in my career, I'm interested in your podcast, and we're spending that time together. And that's what golf brings. It brings people together. And Arnold Palmer taught me a few things when I was at Golf Channel that I've never forgotten. And I can tell a lot of stories about my time at Golf Channel. I mean, I was blessed. I've been to the White House 2 times, once from an interview I did with the First Lady Laura Bush while I was at Golf Channel one-on-one. And the second time was because of the Solheim Cup when I was at the LPGA. So I've met George W. and I've met Barack Obama, but I've interviewed 5 presidents of the United States and had a lot of different great opportunities. But what stands out to me, and if you look over my shoulder, you'll see a picture of the king standing at St. Andrews.
I have that picture.
When I started at, and it's signed, when I started at Golf Channel and he would come around, you didn't dare park in his parking space, by the way. And he would come around in 1997, shortly after the 96 Olympics. He was opening up an Arnold Palmer designed golf course in Conyers, Georgia, just outside Atlanta after the Olympic Games. They were going to build it on the equestrian site, and they did. And they said, Kraig, you're going to fly up there with the king on his airplane, and you're going to go to the day that he opens the golf course. I'm like, wow, what an opportunity. So Al Pollock, cameraman, and myself go up there. At any rate, he does the day, plays the golf. We get done. And he went to the plane first. We had to interview some other dignitaries. And we get back by the plane, and he's standing up on the top of the steps going, come on, let's go already. You know, and I'm like, right, yes, sir. You know, we get on and fly back to Orlando. I'm thinking, what's the rush, right? I mean, it's his own plane. We're not going anywhere. It's not going anywhere. He owns the thing. But anyway, we get back to Orlando. We go into the hangar. And I'm telling you, Pete, this hangar, the floor at Orlando Airport of this hangar, private, is pristine. It's like marble. It's got the iconic logo with the umbrella and everything on it. And we get done, and I said, Mr. Palmer, thank you for an amazing day. He goes, where are you going? I said, well, I'm going back. I got to start working on this story. He said, not so fast. You're not going anywhere. I'm like, okay. He goes to the back of his airplane, and he wheels out this Coleman cooler. And the cooler's filled with ice and beers. And he says, we're having a beer. He pulls up 4 director's chairs, himself, his co-pilot, myself, and Al, the cameraman. And I called home, and I'm like, I'm going to be a little bit late. Why? Well, Arnold Palmer just said, we're having a beer. And if the king says we're having a beer, we're having a beer. So I'll be home whenever I get home. At any rate, Arnold Palmer at that time made me feel, anybody in that room, made me feel like the most important person in the room or in his world at that moment. And I never forgot that. That's what people say about him, but I never forgot it. And so when I'm around people, or when I'm doing my workshop, or when I'm one-on-one with some executive that wants to figure out how to present and own a room, I'm going to make them feel like they've got my full attention and they are the most important person to me, that collective group. I've never, ever forgotten that. Same thing. If you're blessed enough to sign an autograph, you better sign it just like he did, where it's legible and people can read it. Those things are really important lessons in life. And I've got tons of different stories from various things that have happened to me, but that one stands out. And I think it plays in anything that we do in life.
Yeah, I'd say that's a pretty good story to sit there and have not only ride on his plane, but to cap it off and have beers with him sitting there. It doesn't really get much better than that.
Crazy.
That's
crazy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Your company, I want to ask you about that, the Kann Advisory Group, because a lot of people don't understand the basics. And as the title of your book, and I'll have a link to that where people can get it in the summary of the description.
Thanks.
Can you get your attention? So it's very, I think, simple, but people don't do the simple things today. Tom Brady talks about just do the simple things and do them exceptionally well. You don't have to do anything great. Great things will come from doing the simple things. But as far as branding, I think a lot of people hear that today, whether they're a director of golf or GM or assistant at a golf course, or they're a member there and they have their own business, or they work in the Fortune 500 or whoever it is. But for somebody that hears it a lot, but they think they know what it is, but if you ask them what is branding, they would sit there and they might think for a little bit and they're not really sure how to answer. So as an expert in the field, in the industry, who teaches people how to do that, can you tell everyone what branding is and why it's so important?
A unique image, a unique way about you, something that other people talk about. All right. But I spell unique YOUNIQUE. Now, here's the thing. I do this in my workshops, and I'll ask everybody at the very beginning, raise your hand if you believe that you are a brand. Not everybody does that. Well, they're incorrect. If they believe that, they've already cut their legs out from underneath them before we even get started. You're a brand. I'm a brand. I have another brand. Your brand is your podcast, Golf 360. That's part of who you are. Now, what people don't realize is that their brand is not what happens inside that room, or somebody's brand is not what happens inside their workplace or in their meeting. Their brand begins when they've left the meeting, when they've left the workplace. What will people think about you? What will people remember about the things you said or how you carried yourself? What will people tell other people about the things that you said? And what will people feel emotionally charged or connected to that came from you that they'll feel compelled enough to go share with other people? That's what becomes your brand. It's really about reputation. It's about what you do. So consistency is important. And you mentioned what Tom Brady said, doing the little things, but doing them really, really well. That's very important. And so I have a story to tell about a player on the LPGA. I'm not going to tell you which player it was. It's irrelevant. We were at the major championship at Mission Hills Country Club. This is years ago. And I was sitting at the 18th green wearing a blazer like we did at major championships. And she shot an incredible round. This player hadn't been in the spotlight in a little while. And the round of 60, I believe 68, was fantastic. And she was right up at the top of the leaderboard. It was the first wave, morning wave. And so I'm sitting there and she walks up to me and I kind of walk up to her and she goes, "Am I in trouble?" I said, "No." I said, I just want to ride with you into the press room. I want to watch your press conference and I wanted to congratulate you." She said, "Oh, wow." I said, "Let me ask you something. This is while we're riding in." I said, "What are you going to talk about in there?" She goes, "Oh my gosh, I'm going to talk about that back nine I had, the 4 birdies and my round of 68. I said, with all due respect, nobody cares. And she looked at me like I was nuts. And she said, "What are you talking about?" I said, "Let me put this in perspective for you. Your name is on your bag. You are a professional golfer at the highest level, competing in the biggest events in golf. They expect that you should be able to shoot 68 in a major championship. And you expect that you should shoot 68 in a major championship, or you wouldn't be here. What I'm telling you is that when you go in there are a lot of people that shoot 68 and they don't really care about the birdies. What I want to see is them care about you, the human being, the person. And I want them to humanize you. And I want you to be able to share with them a reason that they should pay attention to you, a reason that they should care." Hypothetical to you is there are 150 plus players on a tee sheet in the morning on Thursday at a golf tournament. If I bring my family out, I got 150 other choices. Why are we picking you? Why should we follow you? Why should those media members pay attention to you? Your job is to tell them about you, give them your story, share your brand, make an impression on them, and give them a reason to follow you. So, there's a thing that I talk about being known, the importance of being known versus the importance of being knowable. Being known is like, how many followers do I have? Being knowable is the reason that they might want to follow me. So what is it that I do that's special and unique outside of a 68? What is it that I do outside of just doing a workshop? What is it that I can do on this podcast with you aside from just answering your questions? That's what we have to teach people to do. We have to have them find the confidence within themselves to share their story and to tell people why they matter. And that's one of the things I do in my workshops. I'll bring somebody up at the very beginning. Here's your audience. There might be 400 people in a keynote and they're petrified of the whole thing, And I say, "Hey, there's your audience. I want you to tell them who you are and why they should care." And you should see what happens with people. They're like, And when they're done, I said, "You know what? I didn't do that to embarrass you. I'll do it to coaches. I'll do it to executives, CEOs, do it to a lot of people. I do it for 2 reasons. The first one is you just showed everybody here and me the value of story. You don't necessarily know your story. You weren't that comfortable the minute I asked you to tell me about yourself. You didn't do that. You hemmed and hawed and looked nervous. The second reason I did it is that the minute I asked you to do that, I looked around. I'm a body language guy, and I watched all these people sitting in that room. And you know what they were doing? They were looking at their phones. They were turning over here, trying not to get noticed. Well, guess what? The minute they did that and they started staring straight ahead going, "Hey, I don't want Kraig to notice me," they figure it out. I said, "Guess what? I got you." because I've got their attention. And it's very difficult to get people's attention. We cannot, Pete, remember this, we cannot wait for people to take notice. We have to give people a reason to pay attention. And in today's world of a lot of noise and a lot of messages and a lot of marketing and a lot of conversation, we got to find a way to cut through the clutter and make people think that we have value, that we deserve to be noticed.
Is what someone does on a daily basis, the way they carry themselves, maybe the way that they dress, the way that they act in their work environment, I'm assuming that would all play a role in their brand. Like, for example, someone could be, if you're going to be extremely proficient or I don't want to say a perfectionist, but let's say Japanese culture is very well known to do things exactly the way that they're supposed to be. They will set down a spoon a very certain way. And for anybody that has followed that culture or been in that culture, they would understand that. Or if you've watched movies on that, I use that as an example. Hopefully a lot of people will understand it. Shogun was just on the mini series again recently, so that's why it's in my head. But if somebody's going to do that, then it's either, do you advise them that if you're going to do it and doing everything you do, because if you do things exceptionally well, but you don't pay attention to your grooming or the way you dress or whatever, people are going to see that and they're going to say something's not matching up. And then maybe you get passed over for getting tapped on the shoulder and say, hey, would you like to maybe be a part of this group that we have or go there?
Yeah. And so I'm glad you said tapped on the shoulder, because there are a lot of people that have great talent that they're sitting in a cubicle and they never get tapped on the shoulder. You know, an executive doesn't give them that chance. And that's one thing I tried to do when I was leading communications at the LPGA, our team. I tried to, and if I'm most proud of anything, it's that I feel like I built an amazing team of talented people. Like they all were either promoted or recruited out to some position that would give them even greater opportunity. And I'm real proud of that. And they all stay together too. That's great. We had an amazingly talented staff, people smarter than me in a lot of different ways. And so I was really proud of that. But a lot of people are afraid of the spotlight. They don't want to be tapped on the shoulder. And standing out is the key. Standing up is your opportunity. Standing out when you stand up becomes your brand. Okay. So we gotta, most people are afraid of public speaking. It's the number one fear in a survey among all Americans. Wow. Public speaking. Number 2 is death in that survey. I mean, think about that for a second. Okay. I mean, I actually am afraid of dying. I got a lot I want to do. I'm not ready to go yet, but basically what that's saying is that people would rather be buried 6 feet underground than be above ground talking about the life they lived before they were buried underground, because they don't want to talk. They don't want to stand up there and deliver. And it's that's really amazing. Important. And the Carnegie Institute has a survey, and they have a statistical bit of information that 85% of our success financially is based on what they call human engineering, which is communication, connection, the ability to have relationships. How do we present? Only 15% of our economic value, if you will, what's in our back pocket, is based on what we went to school for, our true educational trade. What it says is we have to learn to communicate. We have to learn to present. All those things are really important. And, we can write great notes. We can write down all the ideas in the world. I'm a big ideas guy. Anybody that knows me knows my mind, it goes like crazy. I'm a big light bulb guy. And, but when that light bulb goes off, you better be able to convert on those things. And if we can write all those notes down, I've got a workshop on Monday coming up, and I'm going to have them do this exercise. We can all write down great things, but can you bring your ideas to life? Can you bring your information to life? Can you present it? So I have 2 jobs as a keynote speaker. And by the way, website, kraigcannspeak.com. All right. So if you want to learn about my keynotes or opportunities to have me come go off for an hour, that's where you can find me on that one. But at any rate, it's really important. I have 2 jobs. The first one is to make people remember what they're supposed to remember. That's my number 1 job as a speaker or a presenter. That's everybody's job. When you're delivering message, not one of many things, it's the only thing that matters. You are lost without a message. So you've got your podcast. You're asking me a bunch of questions. I hope that in this, you will deliver your own message each and every time so people know what you stand for. Number 1, make people remember what they're supposed to remember. Number 2, make people remember that I was the one that shared that information, so that when people walk out the door afterwards, they don't just say, yeah, we had a speaker today, or I went to this conference, or my company decided to have an all hands meeting. No, I want them to walk out the door and go, you know what? They just had a speaker. His name was Kraig Kann. And that was a really good experience. You should have been there. And so when people say, do you do keynotes or do you do workshops? I say, not really. And they say, well, wait a second. I've been on your website. It says you do both of those. I said, yeah, you know what? I do experiences. I try to give people an experience. And that's what I go back to the golfer, go into the media center. You need to go in that media center and give people an experience about you. You need to tell them why you matter. You know, I remember having a conversation with Brittany Lincecum, and I said, we did this with a bunch of players when I was there. What's the best media we could get for you? What would be your dream? You know, and everybody had something, you know, Christy Kerr was big into wine, you know, and all of that. So we tried to help her get into the magazine that would be tied to that. And Brittany Lincecum, amazing person, just a fabulous human being. She was all about fishing. I don't know if people know that are listening, but
really, never would have guessed.
Oh, we're not talking about the small stuff either. We're talking about the big stuff. She got the big boat, the whole thing. and so I said, what would the best media show? I want to be on a fishing show. I said, we're going to work to get that done. She goes, you're not going to get that. Come on. I said, just give us the time. I said, you're going to help me though. Here's how you're going to do it. So the next time you win a big tournament, when you go into the press room, I don't want you talking about the 68 you got. When they ask you about the value and the importance of the win and what it meant to you, your answer is not, you know, that you just won $500,000. It's that you won enough money to get your new fishing boat you've been telling me about for the last 6 months. And then they're going to say, wait a second, fishing boat? What are you talking about? And she goes, oh yeah, you know, I fish for the big stuff. I mean, I got some. And then everything's going to change. And so she did it. And you know what? The headline, if I'm not mistaken, like coming out of the press conference in one of the magazines or papers was, you know, Lincecum reels in big tournament. Pretty cool headline and all this stuff. And she's got to show people pictures of the big fish and all that. Lo and behold, we got her on a fishing show because we were able to merchandise the media. So like if I go back to my time at the LPGA, my favorite thing about it, aside from the team that I got to work with, were the players and building their brands and elevating them to the point that they realize the value of themselves in the game of golf and their story and try to get them. Lydia Ko, amazing person. So-Yeon Yu, unbelievable person. You know, and then people trying to say, oh no, these players, they don't speak English. Baloney, not true. And so I would do a press conference and I'd bring in Shen Feng, and I'd bring in So-Yeon Yu, and I'd bring in Yanni Sen, some of them speaking better English than I do, if you get me going real fast, right? And we would break that thing down, and people would walk out of there laughing because Shen was so funny and being so impressed by the things that Yanni was saying about, you know, culture and the team and the LPGA. We tried to do things that would get people to pay attention. That was the important thing. And so I just think it's really important when you're talking about brand that you are remembered for something. Your value is huge, but it's not just about what we do. It's how we do it and the impact that we make on others.
It seems like the LPGA does a very good job at that. Obviously, you just gave a number of examples. And as I watch the Champions Tour Instagram page, they're doing what seems to be a lot more of that. In other words, getting to the personal level of the players, like where they're highlighting. I think they had it. Ernie Els talked about how he got the name the Big Easy recently. Mm-hmm. And then obviously Boo's been on there. And yes, he's a friend of mine, and I don't mean to be partial, but I got to be a little partial,
Love
my
him.
buddy.
Great guy.
But I mean, and he's on there talking. He's not hitting shots. They've got him out there fishing and telling stories about driving U-Hauls from Michigan to Iowa. And it has nothing to do with golf. I mean, it's golf. Yeah, he's going from a tournament to another, but it's his, hey, this is a real person. And he's just like, well, he's really not like anybody, to be honest with you.
He isn't like, I had dinner with him in New Orleans, and that was an experience. Okay. It wasn't a dinner. It was an experience. Okay. Keep going.
I've had plenty of dinners with him. First time I played credit card lottery was with about 12 guys was with him. He dragged me to dinner one night, and that was scary. That was one of my first week playing mini tours back then. Here I am, 12 guys, and I'm down to the last 3, and I'm like, what did you get me into? But yeah, but it seems like they're doing that more. It doesn't seem like the PGA Tour does that. Is it because they don't really need to do it, and it's necessity that the LPGA and the Champions is doing it, but it seems to be working exceptionally well.
Yeah, I think you're on to a little bit of something right there. I mean, well, let's put it this way: Full Swing didn't go to the Corn Ferry Tour to put them on the show. They grabbed the biggest names in the game of golf, right? And then they humanized them through that.
Yeah,
I would
that was
say
the biggest
that,
one.
yeah. So in 2011, and I have a bit of a case study that I share in some of my keynotes when I'm doing it in front of a big golf audience or big corporation that's tied to golf. 2011, I had a bunch of magazine subscriptions that I had when I was at the LPGA, and across my desk in October came Sports Illustrated. And the cover, this was right after the World Series, the week after the World Series. And on the cover was actually J.J. Watt. Think about that for a second, okay? And at the top of the magazine, it said, Tigers I think it was Giants and Tigers. I can't remember the two teams. But anyway, it had the little small line at the top. And I'm like, whoa. This is America's pastime. This is the week after the World Series. When do you not see the cover of the magazine with the home run swing or the champagne celebration or everybody jumping on each other? We got J.J. Watt, okay? The Houston Texans right there. So my line of thinking, my eyes were wide open. Now, I'm not Rob Manfred, Commissioner of Baseball. I'm not his marketing guy. I'm not his communications guy. But I can promise you that there was a conversation that next week about how that happened. Because if America's pastime can't get on the cover of Sports Illustrated the week after their most important event, then what about the LPGA? Golf is a niche sport. The LPGA is a niche within that niche. We got a lot of work to do, and we could not follow the curve. We had to set the curve. We had to take, the outside the box thinking, take the box, chuck it in the ocean. We had to go where people didn't think was even possible to go. We took our media guide and turned it into a player's guide. Honestly, you can go back and look at what's on the cover of it. And we did bios and got rid of a bunch of stats. Those stats are meaningless after 2 months. Who cares about the stats from the prior? You can look those up somewhere else. We want you to know about the players. So when you go interview them, they actually care. And the players bought into that. Right? We had a player communication committee try to elevate their brands. Some great ideas that started flying around. We put Twitter handles on the back of the caddy bibs instead of just their names. At the Michelle Wheat, at the P Creamer, all that sort of stuff. Right? So social media followings. Why did we do that? We did that because we wanted the players to feel. We didn't put at LPGA. Name a sport that promotes itself. They promote its superstars. The NBA promoted Michael Jordan, LeBron James, Kobe Bryant. On down the line. Major League Baseball, same thing. Aaron Judge is, the hottest ticket right now. So, that's the thing that you have to think about. How do you get noticed and cut through the clutter? So when it comes to Kann Advisory Group, I tell people all the time, a couple things. What do? We elevate communication. That's the first thing Kann Advisory Group does. We take a company's people and we will help them become not employees of the brand, but ambassadors of the brand. By going through our workshops, by going through our virtual programs, by going through the different things that we do. And that's the first thing. We will get them to become dynamic storytellers and dynamic presenters. They have to learn the story, who we are, but also who we aren't. So we figure out what the differentiators are for an organization. And then they learn to present that, right? So we elevate communication. We get people talking. People say, what does that mean? Well, if you go through my workshop, not only will I get the people in the workshop up speaking, but I'll get them to learn how to own a room so that when they speak, they'll get other people to speak about the fact that they spoke, if that makes sense. Wow, that was really impressive. Pete was amazing. Okay. The other thing we do in consulting is we help people take their what, a company, an organization, whatever it might be, take their what and learn to present their wow. Because in today's world, the only thing that matters is wow. We live in a society where people want eye candy or ear candy. They want to be blown away by something. They want to know that something matters. They got to remember something about it. And we help not create sensational news or all that sort of stuff, but we got to figure out what the marketing material is and how we can get that out there. That sort of stuff is super, super important. And so we do it through workshops, we do it through virtual, we do it through consulting, where we work with companies for X amount of time, we work with their people. I'm really proud of where it's gone. You know, I wanted to build something that was bigger than just me. I've got 4 advisors on the Kann Advisory Group side, recent announcements, and then I got something else really big that's coming at the end of September, and I'm very excited about that. And I think that's going to open some eyes for sure when they see who's linked up with Kann Advisory Group to create not just a day, but a real experience. So that's what I'm excited about. And then the broadcast talent coaching is just kind of a pay it forward thing for me, and have hired some really great coaches, and somebody like Meg Green, who was at ESPN for years, recruiting talent, coaching talent, and contract negotiation to help coach people that want to be sportscasters to go to the right level. So as you can tell, I'm a little bit excited about it. I like what I do.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, and it's fun. But I wouldn't be able to do it, Pete, if I hadn't had all these other experiences that have helped me to kind of keep some stuff in my head to be able to share with others.
It along the lines of branding, just continue with that a little bit more. One question I had was, does a brand happen as an illustration of what is, let's say, inside somebody or what they are, or is it something that they set a goal to create a brand that says, I'm going to make myself be this. You know, this is going to be what I project out to the public. So which one is that, or is it a combo of both?
Well, I don't think you can be fake. I think you have to be that buzzword authentic. If I asked you to look at your last 10 posts on any social media platform, your brand's right there. That's part of your brand. What does that say? Is it consistent? You know, like I'll talk to kids in college and I'll say, all right, where do you want to go? Well, I want to be a sportscaster. Okay, well, I don't need to see pictures on your social media then of how many beer cans you could stack on top of each other at spring break. You know, that's not going to get you where you want to go. If you want to go there, then you got to tell the story of where you want to go. That sort of stuff's important. I think our brand is always, and I have a slide that I show in front of people, it's always under construction. It is. It's constantly under construction. My brand has had many different chapters to it. Okay. If you look over my shoulder, you'll probably see a shoe sitting there, and it's a green shoe. All right. If you follow me and you follow Kann Advisory Group, I talk a lot about the green shoe. Mm-hmm. And a green shoe goes to some person in every workshop or keynote speech that I do. And there's a slide, without giving everything away, that shows the value of a green shoe, and it stands out. And we have to help companies figure out their differentiator, AKA their green shoe quality. We have to have people figure out their superpower, their gift. One of yours would be, you make a conversation incredibly comfortable. All right. This is not an interrogation. This is a comfortable conversation. You have a comfort factor of you that makes me feel good to sit here and talk to you and share whatever it is. Right. That's one of your gifts, whether you've been told that or not. But everybody's got to have a green shoe quality. Mine, somebody says, who are you, Kraig? And I go back to that thing when I bring somebody up in front of the room and they don't have an answer to that. I tell people I'm an elevator. And they go, what? I don't get that. What the heck's that? You go up and down? I go, no. That's not what I'm talking about. Number one, I work to elevate people to become better. I help them understand their value. I help them build a brand worth following. So I elevate people to become better. I elevate brands to become bigger. Well, how do you do that? Well, by helping individuals become better, collectively, we build a better culture. And then we actually take them and teach them how to present the best version of the company story. Together, they become an ambassador group, and that brand becomes bigger. We'll help them with their messaging as well to stand out and get noticed. So I help elevate people to become better, elevate brands to become bigger, and I will elevate events to become grander. What do you mean by that? Well, if you hire me to come do a keynote speech or be your featured speaker at a member guest or a big company-wide meeting, I'm not going to deliver a talk. I'm going to deliver an experience. I'm going to have people on the edge of their seat. They're not going to know what's coming next. I'm going to have my story about the tracks to success tied into the podcast. I'm going to have my stories about can you get our attention tied into the book. And I'm going to teach people how they need to look at themselves differently and how they need to look at their career in a different version. It is something that I spend a lot of time on. So if it comes down to one word that I'm an elevator. And I teach people to come up with a word that applies to them. And you can figure out yours on your own, but that's what we need to do. And our brand is under construction. And I constantly am thinking about what can I do, not to make me look good, but to make others do the talking for me about the experience they got from being a part of one of our workshops. That's what I try to do.
You know, at first I would say it's I was going to ask you, how do you become so selfless in that endeavor? Meaning you're so focused on what the people gain and the value that you give them at the event. But as I thought about that a little deeper, it's not that selfless is, I would say, a part of that recipe, because you're willing to say, hey, I'm going to come in. If you want to hire me, I'm going to come in, I'm going to do this for you. But would you get your satisfaction or your feel good moment by knowing that you're, through the course of your career and all these years, that you develop the skills in order to get people to excel, and that when they call you up or email you and say, hey, Kraig, I came to you, or we hired you for this, and 3 of our employees attained this level that they didn't think they could get to, but with your help they did. So is that where the I guess gratification maybe might be not the right word, but just to try to paint the picture of what I'm trying to get across.
Yeah.
Is that where it comes in, and not so much selflessness, even though that's part of it?
Well, I've been looked at as selfish before. I mean, if you're in TV and you're an anchor, people immediately think, egomaniac. And by the way, I need to touch on something you brought up earlier. You're talking about how people, when they walk into a room, dress the part and all that sort of stuff, and about the brand.
Yeah, because people will pick up fake, as you mentioned.
Oh, they do. They do. And we live in a society where people size people up really quick, and then they go talk. We live in a gossip-filled society, so people are going to say something about you no matter what. That you can't control that. The question is, can you control the narrative and get people to talk about the things you want them to talk about? Okay, that's important. Dressing for success is really big. And when it comes to executive presence, that's one of the things that's tied to that. Can you own a room? Can you have preparedness? Are you the person that sits in the back and takes notes? Are you the person that pushes a meeting forward? Are you prepared to deliver something special? How do you look? Are you dressed where you are, or do you dress where you want to go? My mom, God rest her, she was an image consultant. So I've been her guinea pig for a long time. By the way, I love wearing the hoodie. I don't have to wear the suit all the time now. I got a little branding going on the sleeve, but that's good, right? So we have to think about how we're viewed. That's really important. Now, to your question, which was about pushing a brand forward and all the different things that we want to try to do, right? Is that where you wanted me to go?
Yeah, it was. Honestly, I just kind of lost track. Actually, it was about. Originally, it would sound like word. I was going to ask you where the selflessness came from, because you're completely
right, exactly. And I said I have some of that in me, right? I do think about myself, but I think about myself as far as the impact. So in the workbook that is a part of our workshops, the last page is a rip out that they give back to me, and it says, "What story will you tell others about the experience?" Why do I have it written that way? It's written that way. I don't want them to talk about me necessarily. I want them to talk about the impact they got and what they'll tell others about the experience that they got that day. So here's an important thing that ties to the question that you asked. I start with audience first, always. It always has to be about when they're gone. I just want you to think about that for a second. When they're gone. Right. So people are going to watch this podcast. They're going to listen to this podcast. When they're done, when they're gone, what will they say about what you said or what we talked about? What will they tell others about what you said or what we talked about? Most importantly, people, how will they feel? How will they feel about what we talked about? Now, if I know what I want at the end when they're gone, I want the standing ovation. I want them to walk out the door, actually run through the door, and go tell people about the experience they just had. Then I got to figure out, how do I accomplish that? So then I go all the way back to the beginning and I go, all right, here's how I'm going to achieve that. Now, I don't want to give away all the different things that I do in a keynote speech. Hopefully people will want to bring me in to see that, but that's how you do it. That's what you think about. Think about the end first, work your way back. So when it comes to selflessness, you have to put your audience first. That's one of the things in sitting in a boardroom at the LPGA when I was in those meetings. Look, I didn't have all the experience that other people had. There were a lot more people in that room smarter than me about, success in the corporate world. But I think I brought a unique voice to that exercise every single time. Because one of the things that I was able to do, so if I was looking at one of my green shoe differentiators, if you will, in that environment, I'm able to tell people, okay, I think this should be our message, or that's not the greatest message. And then they'll say, why? And I say, because you know what? I've been on the other side of it. And so if we're trying to get media attention, I can tell you what the media is going to say about what we just said. I can tell you what they're going to think about what we just said. And I can tell you what they're probably going to write about what we just said or go on TV and talk about. So if we want this, then we got to do this. And that's an interesting concept that people need to think about outcome first and work their way backwards. So anytime we were ever delivering a message, and by the way, Commissioner Juan, now at the USGA, he's masterful at it, right? He's amazing at it. And I always used to tell him when we had our private moments and talks, and grateful for all that I learned. What do you want to get out of it, Mike? What's the goal here? Oh, okay. All right. Then here's how we got to try to go get that. Now, he might have agreed or disagreed or whatever. It was always a fun conversation, frankly, but that's what we would talk about.
Very interesting. Tell me more about Truth to Success podcast.
What got
Success? Yeah, I'm sorry. Track. Yes, Track to Success.
Yeah.
What made you jump in the podcast realm?
Two things. Number one, my love for media. I wanted to do something that I thought I had a pretty decent skill at, which is interviewing. I've hosted a lot of panel discussions, and I always loved sitting there with Brandel and Frank or whomever. Mark Lai would be another example, or Brian Hewitt or Peter Osterhaus, or many of the people that sat on the set with me over time, and try to ask the question that would solicit the best answer. I wasn't trying to bait anybody, but I knew that our job was to make people sitting at home on the couch nudge each other and say, "Did you hear that? Did you see that?" It wasn't my job to come up with the answer. It was my job to get them to talk about things that would be compelling and interesting to get them to stick with us. So I love the opportunity to interview people. And this gave me a platform. Now, everyone's like, well, you can do a golf podcast? No, I don't want to do that. I've done that 18 years. I want to do something different. And I'm always interested. It's tracks to success, inspiring people, inspiring stories. I've had Chris Harrison, the host of The Bachelor, on there. I've had Chris Pronger, NHL Hall of Famer, one of the greatest hockey players ever, right? I've had Stephanie Abrams from the Weather Channel, quite interesting. I've had Jim Weatherby, only man that commanded 5 space shuttle missions for the United States of America. I've had Joe Buck. I've had Mike Tirico. We could go on down the line. You mentioned Brandel Chambly. But I've had keynote speakers, motivational speakers, Pat McGann, a really good stand-up comic. I want to hear their journeys. Mark King, Adidas,
yes, that was very
TaylorMade,
cool.
right?
Now
and then Taco Bell CEO. Yeah, I mean, talk about pivots and journey. So you want to hear from people on how they got there and what that journey was like. I'm fascinated by that sort of stuff. And my season coming up this fall is I've already done a bunch of the interviews. They're awesome people. I love the stories. And by the way, Boo Weekley is a target of mine because I think he's got a really cool journey. Doesn't matter whether it's golf or not, but he's an interesting story. So you can tell Boo I want him, and we can figure that out later. But that's how it came to be. And so I want to find people that have a story to tell. That's one thing. But I want to have people on the show that have stories worth telling. And I want to have people on the show that other people will tell that were on the show. So you got to find the right mix. And I love kind of going into different lanes, if you will, on the guests. And if I'm honest about it, and I kind of hinted at this earlier, there isn't anything that I do that I don't try to tie into something else, ultimately, whether it's my business or a potential next book or something else, right? So everything has to be with a purpose. I see people go a lot of different ways, and none of it truly makes sense or ties to one thing or another. It's very difficult to stay in your lane, but if you can find a way to tie everything in to thought leadership or whatever it might be, and right now that's what I'm trying to do is create that.
Yeah, it's a very cool show. I'll have again. I'll link all these things in the summary that people can get with one click. I listened to a number of them. As I mentioned, Brandel's and Mark King's was very interesting. And one of the reasons my playing career, let's say I turned pro, really tried to my shot at fame and glory in 2000, and I kind of packed it up in 2007, back issues and things like that. But Mark, I remember him being at TaylorMade. I remember going to the MaxFly plant in Greenville. I think this is right around the time that they were buying MaxFly, or taking them, whatever the terminology is, where they were
Sure.
blending, let's say. But I remember, I think I met him once, but so I evidently, and I see that, and I wonder what the hell happened to Mark. And then he says, TaylorMade to Taco Bell. I think, oh my God, I got to listen to this thing. Because, and you're right, you talk about an odd pivot, and why he would go back to work and to run something and have the headaches of that after 30 some years in one career. It was quite
because something else gave him the itch, and he has an amazing leadership skill that translates across multiple platforms. And he's a great motivator. He's a very real person, and he has great messages. And he quite frankly, is somebody that you would greatly respect for his knowledge, but you could also sit next to in one of those white rocking chairs in the Charlotte airport, if you've ever been in the Charlotte airport, and just have a back porch conversation with, and I think that's really important too.
What has been the best thing or the most enjoyable part of having your own podcast?
Probably having them open up and actually share. A lot of people are guarded. I try to make them very comfortable. I think I asked them questions that, quite frankly, like I had Cole Swindell on. I mean, the guy's an amazing country music star, but I didn't go into every story that he probably thought was coming. I went in different directions with him and asked questions that maybe he didn't see coming. I try to keep it fun, light, but also I think about my guests. What would they want to hear from this person about the same type of topic, which is your success, your journey? So, like I'll take you as my audience. Every guest I have, what can Pete learn from this person? That's a key for me. And I really enjoy that. And I enjoy picking the guests too, and kind of sifting through the names and saying, this is going to work, or this is going to work. Like, I don't want to give away, my first couple guests, but there's some interesting names and some interesting backgrounds, and some are tied to the NFL, but not in the way that you would think. Some are tied to media, not necessarily in the way you would think, and that excites me too. I enjoy that.
Yeah, it's very cool, to use a very basic word, to talk to a lot of different people about a lot of different things. As we talked before we came on, that one of the reasons I call it Golf 360 is I can have anybody on that's just all they have to do is have an association with golf.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't had any big celebrities, but let's just say, for example, Justin Timberlake. Justin can come on because he's a big golfer, and we could talk about the golf, but then just segue into whatever he wants to talk about touring or what it's like to be a megastar or anything like that. But it's a lot of fun. And I have friends that say, how do you do this? I said, I have no idea. I just have a curious mind that jumps around a lot of different directions, and just like to hear people's, as you said, like to hear people's stories and how they did what they did and got where they are. And it's very interesting. I'm a big biography guy. I like watching biographies on the 30 for 30s, and I think, what was it, one of the cable channels years ago used to have biography every night, and Sam Walton and Titans of the back in the Barron era, and then just anybody and everybody. And for me, that was the first time I always thought you had to do everything perfect to become very successful, and I realized in watching those, it was a big wake-up moment that these guys have failed, and women have failed numerous times, like major crash and burns. And I was like, you mean they didn't do it perfect all the time?
You know how many people won't launch something because they don't think they have it just right yet? Like, when I launched my business, I didn't have it right. I've figured things out along the way. I've had a bunch of things that didn't go right that I adjusted and pivoted and changed and tweaked. That's a never ending process. But the people that are stuck, in neutral, aren't going anywhere. The toughest step, they always say, it's that first one, but you got to take it. You got to take it, and you can't be afraid. And so, I talk a lot about public speaking and the importance of it. Warren Buffett says you can increase your value by 50% by being good at public speaking. Why? Because most people don't want any part of it. They're not going to sign up for a public speaking class. Puts them in an uncomfortable situation. You got to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And I try to help people learn that. There is a mental power outage, as I call it, for a lot of people when they get up there. And if that happens to you, and I coach people on this, you focus on 2 H's. You get stuck, you forget where you're going, you focus on 2 H's, your head and your heart. Your head is all the experiences that you've got, all the things that have happened to you. And if you do a good job of writing things down and kind of journaling as you go, you should have those stories on cue, ready to go, experiences and different things. That's number 1, your head. Number 2 is your heart. And your heart is the passion that you have for whatever it is you do. If you can take those experiences and deliver them with passion and get people energized, empowered, inspired to go do something, then you've made a big difference. And so I tell people a lot, look, number 1, I didn't write the book to get rich off the book. I wrote the book to get rich off opportunities that could come from writing the book and sharing my story and helping people understand the importance of getting attention for the right things. Can you get our attention? So that's an important thing. And I'm not in it to make a paycheck. I'm not. I'm in it to make a difference. Whatever I do, I'm in it to make a difference. If I make a difference, then the paychecks will come, whatever those might be. God's always taken good care of me. I've always had enough. And I'm grateful for all the opportunities that I've been given, and those that I've earned, frankly, by taking some risk and taking some challenges and handling them in a certain way. But I'm not about how much money I can make. I'm about how many people I can help and influence.
And I would say that's a very, very large part of your success outside of your skill set is the reason, or, I'm sure you know who Simon Sinek is, and he talks about the why. In fact, he wrote a book
I've
called
read.
The Why. Yeah.
Yeah.
And, if you have that, then people aren't dumb. People aren't stupid. They can pick up on it. People have senses, and, they can tell if somebody, as we talked about earlier, you can't fake something. They're going to pick that up right away. And if you are passionate about what you do and you have skills to be able to talk about those things, then I think that, as you said, the success comes, and then your finances will take care of themselves. So very, very good stuff.
I think people get stuck in that. They start thinking about all of those things. I'm not going to lie. There've been times, in building it that I'm like, oh boy, okay, when's my next, my next workshop? When's my next this or that? But everything always has worked out. And, I've tried to invest back every single time in making something a little bit better. I'm excited about that. And I look, like I said, I'm 58. I got to the Golf Channel at 28. That's a long time ago. It's a long time ago.
It's hard to believe it's been that long. I remember when you guys started. 17
years. Yeah, I left in 2011. I still get people say, "Hey, the Golf Channel guy," and I'm like, "Boy, you look at your VHS tapes, or what do you look at?" That's been a while.
Well, y'all made a lasting impression. I mean, it's kind of like for golfers in the golfing world, it's kind of like the original cast of SNL. Where all you guys were there. It was so cool and so
Ryan
neat.
Hammonds, Jennifer Mills, Tom Nettles, right? Mike Ritz, Dwayne Ballin. People don't remember Dwayne Ballin. Linda Cardwell. We could go on down the line of Mark Lai was there from day one, and just some great. Denny Schreiner was the first original voice of tournament golf. And so all the great producers that we had as well, Jeff Himes comes to my mind, Keith Hirschland, who's now producing Live Golf. He was the Golf Channel guy for a long time, as good as there is in the business. It's a special cast. And along the way, I always remember, here's an interesting story for you. I think it's an interesting story. And I don't remember exactly what year it was. He probably hit me over the head with it because we're really good friends, Vince Cellini. And Vince was on CNN for a number of years. And he's still doing stuff on the PGA Tour Champions for Golf Channel. Vince got hired. I was in Hawaii at the time at Kapalua, and Sony opened and came back, and he had started. And I remember people saying that were in the building on air, not going to say the names, but they were like, oh, bringing in Shalini. I mean, the guy's really good. What's that going to mean for me? And I'm like, wait a second. I want you to hear yourself right now. We just brought in the one name. I mean, with all due respect to all of us, he's a bigger name than we are. Okay. He's got a bigger background than we have. He's covered NBA finals, and he's been out there doing stuff with Fred Hickman and Nick Charles and all those guys, Hannah Storm, Dan Hicks. Think of all them at CNN on that original crew. He's going to make us better. He's going to elevate the rest of us. You're going to have to up your game. He made the Golf Channel better by name recognition. And that's when the Golf Channel, in my opinion, started changing and really started adding things that got better. Look, Van Pelt was a great, not only a great guy, a great talent, a great human being. And I anchored shows with him when he had hair, for gosh sakes. I mean, that's how far back we go. And look at him. But if you worked with him, you knew that was possible. And so there were a lot of people, and you made the comment, so I'm not stealing it. That original cast, it will never be replicated. The Golf Channel, I am a little biased on that. I think those were the best days of Golf Channel because we told stories, and now it's talking heads, and it's a lot different. Look, I hosted Live From for, I think, 8 years or something like that. Rich Lerner took it over. He's phenomenal. When he came on board, he wasn't an original guy. He came a couple years after. But Rich is uber talented. Steve Stans came on board. I mean, we could go on down the line with all the talented people that have been there over the years. But I think what we did at the beginning with that original cast and the shows that were put on by Mike Whalen and Keith Herschel with the live tournament stuff, we weren't the Golf Channel. We were Golf's channel, number one. We made it, a fun thing for everybody. They felt included. But we created something that made other people itch and crawl and climb to want to get there and work. I always remember Steve Burkowski came up to me at the Masters one year, and he was working in South Carolina at the time. And he said to me, I'm going to work at the Golf Channel someday. I said, really? He goes, yeah, I'm going to get there. And I loved it. I loved hearing that, because it was a guy that really knew where he wanted to go. And lo and behold, he made it there. And what a great guy he is. So, yeah, I'm really proud of it, in case you can't tell.
No, not at all. It was, like I said, it was so cool for the golfing world to have their own channel. It's like, wow, we can watch golf all the time. You don't have to watch remember the old $1 million shootout down in South Africa. You only be on at 3:00 in the morning. It's like, I can watch this like in the middle of the day, even though it's tape delayed. I can still watch it now. I don't have to wake up.
Absolutely,
it was such a cool thing, and I was, let's say, not mid 90s is when you guys started that, wasn't it?
1995, January 17th.
95. And so I would have been 23. So for me, it was a young guy that's a golfer. I was an assistant at Sea Pines then. To get off of work and come home, I was like, this is great. I could sit here all night and watch this channel. And then the classics, the old Golf Channel classics were really
Shell's Wonderful World of Golf.
Yes.
All the Golf Talk live shows Peter Kessler hosted, at the very beginning. And we could go on and on, leaderboard report, viewers forum. And there were a lot of really good shows. Big Break obviously was incredibly popular as well.
Oh, yeah. Mr. Henley, I think, really got on board with that one and did a great job. I got to ask you one question about the episode. Was the Grey Goose 19th hole. Would y'all hang out there afterwards and just kind of have your fill a Grey Goose?
Let me tell you a story about that. How many bottles of Grey Goose do you think I got out of hosting that show?
Unlimited? It's either unlimited or none. Okay.
The next bottle of Grey Goose I get from hosting that show is going to be the first. All right. And I don't know how many years I hosted that. It's funny. That was one of my favorite shows that I ever was able to host. And
that was cool.
I loved hosting that show. I had Jeff Root, who's a dear friend of mine, lives in Orlando. John Hawkins. And, every week it would be a revolving door. They'd bring some new people on there. And we had great guests. And, a lot of interviews that we got to do, but I loved mixing it up with people and stirring it up. And it was a lot of fun.
It looked like it. It was very envious that you guys are having so much fun.
Yeah. Yeah. That was good.
Before we wrap up, do you have a little time to do emergency 9?
Sure, let's do it.
Wind down and have some fun doing this one. So I always say that for kind of tweaked it, that if you're planning a member guest and they're going to do a walk-up song, get everybody there in the mood and really pumped up. What song are you going to have them play as you walk up to the first tee?
There's a bunch of songs that come to mind. This is I'm going to go way back. I mean, I used to love Boston. I used to love Journey. But I always loved this is way back. 38 Special. And I'm going to give you the name of the song is Hold On Loosely. And the only reason I'm going to say that song is because I think it applies to a lot of things. Sometimes if you think of the golf grip and, you don't want to hold it too tight, right? And I think one of the things that we've talked about, I think it applies here because sometimes you can hold on too tight to a lot of things. You can hold on too tight to your career. You can hold on too tight to your title. You can hold on too tight to your image of yourself. And I think we need to hold on to those things a little bit more loosely, to be honest, and not put so much pressure on ourselves. Give ourselves a little grace to make mistakes and treat people with a soft, gentle kindness.
Yeah, that's very good advice. I think more people, especially in today's world, it seems to be going the wrong way. People need more of that. That's, hey, take a step back. Yeah. Maybe your anxiety levels and blood pressure and everything else will improve. Hollywood's been watching you and they call you up and they say, Kraig, we followed your career over the last 30 years and we want to do a movie about you and we're going to let you pick the actor that plays you. Who are you going to tell them to pick?
I mean, there's people have said I look like this guy or I look like that guy and all those different things.
Doesn't have to be who you look like. It can be anyone you want to.
I get it. I'm just going to use this actor. First off, every Chevy Chase movie I ever saw, I loved. It just made me laugh. I mean, I think back to Fletch. I probably watched it 100 times. Leslie Nielsen made me laugh, and I got to interview him at the Hope one year. I mean, I loved him. Denzel Washington's one of my favorites. Remember the Titans is just a fabulous movie. I would actually say Tom Hanks. And the reason that I say that is that Tom Hanks can play any role. He's just an amazing actor. And, you think about when we lose somebody in Hollywood and the impact that it makes, when that happens, there's gonna be a lot of tears shed. And I'm not asking for that to happen. I hope he makes 50 more movies, but, that would be the person that I would love to have doing a movie.
To think that he started on Bosom Buddies and then had the career that he did is quite amazing. I think, from my perspective, someone who just started at some small character on TV and became a blockbuster superstar. He and Travolta. I don't know how their path, if they're the same, but they started on TV, small show, and then they just became megastars. Yeah. It's very, very, very cool.
It's
good. Because there's so many crazy ones in golf. If you could change one rule, what would it be?
Oh boy!
And I'm sure you've seen a lot of them.
Well, first off, I think putting with the flag in looks ridiculous. They fixed the whole drop thing is a bit absurd, from the knees and all that. I don't know. We could go on down the list of so many things. And sometimes I worry about that with the game that we're going in such. I'd like them to add a rule. I'd like them to put. I mean, if baseball can do a pitch clock, then golf ought to find a way to have a shot clock. Mm-hmm. Somehow, some way, they got to change it to make it a little bit more compelling from a viewership standpoint. I think attention spans of today's generation demand that it move a little bit quicker. If a producer does his job or her job right, then they're not sitting on it for that long before the shots actually hit. So people at home don't know how long it's actually taking.
Especially the USAM. What was it, 6-hour rounds this year? That's crazy.
Yeah. I'm glad they allowed them to, tamp down the spike marks. I think that's fine. That's good. I mean, gosh, in baseball, they go clean the infield up every 5 innings or whatever. And in hockey, how many timeouts do they have to make sure the ice is pure? Come on, mm-hmm. Why does the afternoon player have to have spike marks that they're putting over? I've never understood that. So I'm glad
it's a penalty for playing well. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's see. Most used app on your phone?
Twitter, X. I'm addicted. I don't believe all the news that's on it, but I'm sure addicted to all the news that's on all the news that's on it.
Got it.
I look at it all the time, and you know, in today's world, I've got 3 kids. I always say the next newspaper they read will be the first. They don't get their news that way. Everything has changed. Every single part of it has changed, and the way we consume things, the way we stream, it's just a different world out there. But I am addicted to X. I like Instagram as well, but Twitter's my thing.
Yeah, I've gone to Twitter as well. I use Twitter probably more than Instagram because I post. It's better for short videos, which we'll post yours coming soon. But as far as myself personally, I'm on X more than I probably am.
And I've changed. I mean, I am a big thing with announcements for business and all the rest of being on LinkedIn and doing stuff there. But yeah, I'm with you. We're on the same page.
Your go-to drink while playing golf?
Oh, while playing golf? When I'm playing golf, and I've been on numerous golf trips with my buddies, my college fraternity brothers, we're beer guys like most, and that's all great. But I just was on a trip I was in Cancun for a week, and those swim up bars they're tough. They're tough. You have a lot of fun at those. I'm a gin and tonic guy. Thankfully, my guy Brian Hammonds from Golf Channel was too. We used to sit around and have those. I'm a gin and tonic guy, but I like a margarita as well.
Oh yeah, good margarita.
I got a bunch of different drinks. So on the golf course, I would probably have somebody make me a gin and tonic on the course. A little swing oil never hurt anybody.
Swing oil is a good name for it.
Yeah.
In the last year, your favorite purchase under $500?
Okay, that's really easy, and it'll give a little hint. Although my daughter's getting married soon, and so I just bought a jacket for the rehearsal dinner. But
there you go.
I would say that that's eye-opening. I would say that it is a pair of Johnston and Murphy shoes, and that's a little hint about the podcast season coming up. I am addicted. That store in the Charlotte airport has a lot of my money. But I don't know. I'm pretty easy. I just moved into a new place with a rooftop in Orlando, brand new. And so I bought some things for the rooftop that are under $500, Adirondack chairs and different things. The big TV that's out there, looking forward to that this fall. So, you can get a good TV for under $500 now.
Yeah,
and a big
can.
one at that. So maybe that's it. But I would say the shoes. I'm a big shoe. You want to get me something? Get me shoes or watches. I like both of those things. I'm into them.
I'm with you on the shoes. There's an outlet. Well, Orlando's got some fabulous outlets, but there's an outlet, Tanger outlet, 3 miles from my house, and they have a Johnston Murphy store in there. It's been there since they opened 25 years ago. And I go in there now, and the guy said, "Can I help you?" I said, "No, I've got more shoes in my closet than you have in this store. I'm just kind of killing time, and if I see another pair I just have to have, then I'll get another pair." But and I always look for the pair that I didn't buy about 15 years ago. Like, you're looking for this lost thing that you just pissed off that I didn't buy it back then because they were so cool. And I don't know why I didn't do it, but every time I go in there, I have hope. My girlfriend says, "You're never going to find those." I say, "I know, but I'm going to look."
Yeah, I'm a hat guy too, and you got a good one going on. But I am a sucker for going to a baseball game or whatever and buying a hat, even if it's not my team. I went to a Padres game earlier this year. Was out doing a workshop in San Diego and went to a Padres game and had to buy a Padres hat. And maybe that's because my team is the White Sox, and we are so dreadful this year that it's been incredibly painful. But I have about 9 of those too. So, and I'm a Mizzou Tiger. I got more Missouri Tiger gear and hats than I need, but I'll always get the next one. So
okay. What is worse, iron covers or a well done steak?
I like my food well done. I like it a little charred, actually. When I was, I'm always a dad, but when I was a dad and we would sit around and like, something's a little bit burnt, give it to dad. Like I'll go to, the bagel place and I'll say, "Can you double toast that for me?" So I like that. I'll take the well done steak. I don't like it well done. I like it medium or medium well. Iron covers are pathetic I'm sorry. That is just so lame. That'd be like a guy playing hockey jumps over the boards, to get onto the ice, and he's got a cover on his blade, and he throws it back. I mean, come on, man. Guy going up to the plate, and he's got his thing wrapped in cellophane so that it's still pure and clean. He throws that. No.
No offense to Mr. Rye. Am I saying it right? That won last week in Greensboro, that he's got the iron cover. No offense to him.
Terrible.
It's just a general question.
Terrible.
Two more. If you could talk to anybody if you could sit in a golf cart and talk to anybody that you wanted to, anybody, who would it be?
Well, I've been blessed to have a lot of conversations with a lot of pretty amazing people, right?
That's why this
presidents
one, I asked this a lot, but for you, I'm very curious, given the people.
Well, the day after Thanksgiving, when Tiger hit the fire hydrant, I was the one anchor in the studio. That was my holiday day to work. Wow. I'll never forget that day. I wouldn't mind sitting in a cart having a conversation with Tiger and talking to him about a lot of things. I'm going to say a fairly generic answer that maybe other people would say. I lost my dad very early in the 2002, to colon cancer at the age of 68. And my dad loved the fact that I got the job at the Golf Channel, as did my grandfather, who lived to be 97. And I played a lot of golf with my grandfather. But my dad didn't get to be a part of my three kids' life the way I know he would have loved to. He was big into sports, and my son was a baseball and football player. My daughter was a cheerleader and ran track, and my other daughter was really good at volleyball, and he didn't get to be a part of all of that. And so I lost out on a lot of different things in my life. And there's been many times I'd love to have just that one more conversation with him about something, and so that's an easy one for me, is to sit with my dad in a golf cart.
Yeah, that's a very good one. Especially a cancer survivor myself, so I feel you a little bit on that one.
Well, good on you, man. Good on you. That's awesome. Congrats.
Thank you. The last one, in your opinion, I'd be very curious on this one too, because you saw both players, and were probably around them. But the greatest of all time, as far as golfers, who would that be in your opinion?
The greatest champion is Jack Nicklaus. The greatest talent is Tiger Woods. The greatest ambassador is Arnold Palmer. Mm-hmm. Or Nancy Lopez. And so greatest is a term I don't always love to use. I mean, I like doing Mount Rushmore of different things, I might
tweak it to the Mount Rushmore, because that's a very interesting
I mean,
one.
I might have thrown four great ones at you right there, but you'd have to go even back further. I mean, I talked about the 13 founders of the LPGA a lot of times, and so, as we sit here and we talk, these types of conversations, because it's in golf so much, makes me reflect so much on what I've been blessed to be able to do. Not that I have to do. And that's one thing that I talk about in my keynote speeches. I know a lot of people that say, I have to go to New York this week, or I have to go do this talk in Chicago, or I have to do this, or I have to get on this Zoom call at 3:00, or no, you don't. We all make choices, and nobody has to go to my daughter's wedding. Nobody had to go to my mom's memorial service. People make choices. I always say, when I'm standing on a stage in front of an audience, I get to be here. I am very fortunate. I get to be on your podcast, and I'm grateful for that. Doesn't matter size or scope of what it is. It's not the size of the room that matters. It's the size of the opportunity, or the size of the message that's delivered. So, I'm just, I'm just really blessed for everything that happened to me in the game of golf, and that Golf Channel opportunity, and having that resume tape that probably went to, in a box with, I don't even know how many 100 or maybe 1,000 for Mike. And I always remember when I got that interview, they flew me down first class. I was in Kalamazoo, Grand Rapids, doing local TV. They flew me first class. They flew me back coach. by the way. And I always wondered why that was. And then Mike later told me why. They flew me first class to show me that the Golf Channel was going to be a first class operation. They flew me back coach to let me know and remember that it was going to be tough. We weren't going to be in the greatest hotels. We were going to have to work long hours. It was going to be tough for a while. And that was an important message.
God, that's very interesting and genius at the same time. Is a metaphor for, hey, here's what it is.
Yep.
That is very cool.
Yeah.
Someone wants to hire you. They want to reach out to you. They want to have Kann Group come in and help their company or their business or whatever.
Yeah.
What's the best way that they can reach out to you?
First off, they can DM me directly on LinkedIn. They can email info@cannadvisory.com, info@cannadvisory.com. You can check out the website, cannadvisory.com. That's going to be under construction soon because I got some cool, exciting things to share. We're going to update the website. But DMing me is a cool way to do it. You did it on X and you got me. People can get me that way. They can get me. I've gotten a lot of business off of Instagram. People ask me, kids, dad, you're on social media all the time. Hey, guess what? That's until they start telling me it's pay per post or pay per view. I'm going to ride that thing into the ground to try to, keep top of mind with some people and provide some value. But info@cannadvisory.com is a great way to get a hold of us. And then there's the website. And if you want to bring me in to speak, Kraig Kann, that's 2 Ks, kraigkannspeak.com is my speaker's website. And I'd be thrilled to be able to come share stories and hopefully make a great experience for somebody in some corporation.
Yes. So I'm sure that hopefully, I don't know how much reach I have. I don't even check the views. All the years I've been doing this, I don't do it for views. I don't do it for sponsorships. I just do it to talk to some very cool people, and I'm sure hopefully a lot of people will reach out to you. It's been a lot of fun. I can't thank you enough for staying so long, gone over the time, but I really appreciate it. Had a lot of fun doing this. I'm sure a lot of people are going to learn from it.
Well, I'm grateful. I appreciate it very much. And last thing I'll leave you with is there's a lot of things. Number one, life is not a practice round. Okay. You get one shot at it. So if you think you're having a dream to do something, take a leap and go try to do it. Get outside your comfort zone. And the other thing is, the last thing I'll say is this was not an obligation. This is an opportunity. And I think a lot of people don't look at things like that. I think they look at it as though it's an obligation and they don't see the positive that can happen from it. They're fearful of a negative outcome, or they're fearful of this, or they have anxiety about this. Anxious and anxiety are 2 different words, and they mean 2 different things to me. But I'm grateful for the opportunity. I didn't look at this as any kind of an obligation. And if I can help you in any way, you let me know. And if I can help anybody out there, info@cannadvisory.com. Connect with me on LinkedIn. DM me on any of the social media platforms. I'm not that hard to find.
No, I can attest to that. I was very happily surprised that you responded as quick as you did, and I can't very very thankful as well.
Appreciate you.
Thank you, Kraig.